Arbitrary YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to make an underbust corset belt. Very simple to make and it's very similar to corset. So we have various corset tutorials on the channel. If you want to check that out, it's going to really help you. So now I've drafted my off-shoulder basic bodies and I already took my waist dart and my bust dart as shown. So I have a video on corset that explains every process of this, so I don't want us to just waste time. That was why I just drafted it, and then we can just go straight to the tutorial. So now the first thing I'm going to do now is to determine how deep I want my center front to be. Okay, so for my off shoulder I went off by 5 inches, which means I started my measurement from 5 inches. This is my shoulder, this is my chest line, which is 8 inches, the bust point 10, the underbust is 14, and then for the front the waist is 18, while for the back bodice the waist measurement I'm working with is 16 inches. The front is 2 inches longer because of the 2 inches bust that I am taking here. So like I said, if you check her corset tutorials, you have a better understanding of this. So now I want to determine how low I want my front to be. Okay, so now you can go as low as maybe 8 inches, 8.5 or 9 inches, but most importantly it shouldn't be lower than your bust point measurement. So let's say I'm going by 8.5 inches, then I'm going to mark the 8.5 inches right here. Okay, and just make a short marking so that it can show me where I'm going to start my measurement. So now the next thing for me, now remember, between two busts there are always spaces in between, from one bust to the other. So that short space I'm going to be taking 1/2 inch, okay, like this, from here to my bust point measurement, and then I'm going to make it into a straight line. So this can be more than 1/2 inch, but it shouldn't be more than maybe a 3/4 inch. It can be up to 1 inch. It's just the little space in between that you see between from one bust to the other. Okay, so I'm taking 1/2 inch now, and then the next thing is for me to just create my bust cup. To create my bust cup from my bust point measurement here, I'm just going to use a curved ruler to connect a smooth curve to my underbust here, and then I have something like this, as you can see. And the next thing now is just for me to curve the other side, but before I can do that I need to close my bust dart so that I can have a smooth curve. So to do that now I'll have to cut off my dart. Okay, so I'm cutting it now. I've removed the first part, which is my center front. I've removed it. Now I'm cutting off the waist dart completely. Just showing us so that we don't get confused when I bring it up. Now I've cut off the waist dart. Remember, the difference between this and the corset is that this is not going to be having a cup, so I don't need this. I just need my center front and my side front. Okay, and to get my side front, I'm cutting out the excess here, and then I can cut my bust dart so that I'll be able to close it up. So using a masking tape, I'm just going to close my bust dart, and then I can finish up my cup. Okay, so I've closed my dart, then I blended my side seam like this, because after closing the bust dart the side seam was no longer aligning. So now I'm going to take my curve now and then complete the curve part of my curve. Remember, this is my seam allowance and my curve cannot enter into my seam allowance, so that should guide you when you're making yours. So from here now I'm just going to try to make a smooth curve like this, and then we are done with our drafting. So I can easily cut this off now because I don't need it, and this is what I need for my front part. Okay, so now let's quickly move to the back. that the back is very simple to make. I already drafted it also. This is my seam allowance, my zipper allowance, and my back dart. So remember, when you're cutting your back, I stopped the side seam has to align, like I said, so you can see. So it means the back is not also going to be having an armhole because the front does not have. And then you determine how low you want the neckline of the back to be. So I used 8.5 for the front. I can also use 8.5 for the back, or I can go lower. So let's say I'm using 9 inches for the back. I'm just going to connect it to my chest measurement like this, and then I can easily cut out my back panel also. So now I'm just going to take this to my fabric now and then replicate it on my fabric, adding necessary seam allowance that I need. Remember, I already have my seam allowance on the side, so I'm just going to be adding seam allowance to this darts, so that by the time I sew in the darts, it's not going to be affecting my dart. And then you need to label your pattern, because once you cut it out now, it will be so similar. So this is the center back and this is the side back, and then you can just indicate how this is going to go, so that by the time you cut it out, it will not be confusing to you. So like I said, you can watch that corset tutorial. It's not for compulsory that you have a zipper allowance if you are not going to be using a zipper. Let's say you are using maybe an highlight to make holes so that you can just lace it up. You don't need this zipper allowance, but because I'm using a zipper for this, that's why I'm adding a zipper allowance to it. So now I'm taking this, now these are my patterns, and then I'm taking them to my fabric now, and then I'll be cutting it on my fabric. Okay, so I've cut it on my fabric now, both lining and main fabric. I'm using the same fabric for both lining and main fabric. So now ideally you should iron interface to this so that it will strengthen it a bit, but because this is a tutorial, I'm just going to go ahead and just sew it together like that. So I just want to show us how I'm going to sew it. Now remember, this is the center front and it has to be cut on fold. So I folded my fabric and I placed the center front on it. So when I finished cutting it on fold, once I open it, this is what I will have. So now I'm going to be detaching this also, and then I'll sew it together here, and then place the other one also and sew it here. And then for the back bodice, remember this is the center back, so I'm going to take it like this also. I'm going to sew them together, both the lining and the main fabric, then I'll bring it back to show us. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew them together, and this is what it looks like now. Okay, this is the wrong side, this is the lining, and these are the back pieces also sewn together. So now for structure, I want to add boning to it. Okay, so I'm using this regular boning, and you can sew on it. So it depends on where you want to, or you can add as many boning as you want. But I'm just going to be adding a boning to the center here, and then the dart lines, just 3 in front, and for the back also I'll be adding just 2 on the dart lines. So it depends on how you want to add your boning. You can either iron your seam allowance open like this, since it's sewable, and place your boning on it and sew it directly, or you can just use a bias or anything to create a casing and then dip your, in the case of you are not using a boning that you can sew on, you have to create a casing to dip it on it. But this, I'll just be iron this open and then sew in my boning for all of them, and then I'll bring it back to show us. But when you are sewing your boning, make sure it doesn't enter into your seam allowance, because remember we are still going to turn these rough edges. So I have to leave ½ inch here and then ½ inch on the lower part for my sewing. Okay, so I've added boning to it, both front and back like I said, and then I left allowance up and down. So now on the side also I matched the front and back together, and then I just sew the side together like this using the same allowance that I left. So now if you open it, this is what it is looking like now. Okay, so everything I did here now, I did the same thing to the lining also. So now the next thing I'm going to do is just to place the lining and the main fabric on top of each other, and then I'm going to go over to the machine now and then sew it round so that I can turn it over. Okay, it has to match. Once you use the same allowance, it has to be the same. So now I'll take it to the machine now and then sew it all around. Okay, so I've sewn it round now, as you can see, and then I notched this cup part. So now I'm going to turn it out, and then I left this piece to turn it out. So it is turned out now, as you can see, and you may find it a bit challenging to turn this narrow part, so you may want to leave a space underneath like this, which you will close later, so that it will be easier for you to turn it. Another alternative is just connecting your channel outside and then passing your boning through this channel, because turning it with your boning inserted may be a bit challenging. And then if you look at it, this side is more structured. I'm here to iron it. Remember to always iron every step of the way. So this part of the underbust is a bit structured than this side. What I did is I took this boning. This is like a 1/4 inch boning. It's not as wide as the boning we were using before. It's a tiny boning, and then I'm going to be passing it through the underbust like this. Another thing you can use is an underbrow wire, but the one I have here is small and it's not going to take the entire underbust, so that is why I'm using this small boning. So I'm just going to dip this boning. I'll first of all measure the amount that I need to go around my underbust. Once I have it, I'm going to cut it out, and then I'm going to be passing it through this space from the opening that I have here. So I'm just going to dip it inside like this. Once I dip it in and it's in place, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and then I'll start sewing it, and then I'll fill it with my hand like I did for this one. I'm using a red thread so that we can see it well. So I'm just going to try to push it to the mid where it's supposed to be, and then I'll continue to sew it like this so that I can secure it in place for me. So I'm going to do that to this other side now, and then after that I'm going to close up this opening that I have, and then you're going to fix our zipper. Okay, so this is the corset. It has been sewn now. I can't iron it right now, so I just decided to top stitch on it. You don't need to top stitch. You may not need to top stitch if you are ironing as you are going. So this is the right side and that is the wrong side. So now I'm going to take it to the mannequin to see what it looks like. This is a small size, that's why I did not add. The next thing you just need to do now is to fix your zipper, but this will not be the size of my mannequin. It's a small size, so I'm just going to pin the back to the mannequin just for us to see the fitting. Okay, so this is the underbust corset. As you can see that it's very simple to make, and I just added my boning to 3 parts, so you can increase your boning as much as you want. And this is the back. The mannequin is bigger than the back, so I just pinned it so it's like this. What the boning does is just makes it just align with the body. You can see how it's giving it structure at the back and also at the front like that. So thank you for watching. If you want to try this out and let us know the challenges you may encounter. See you in the next one. Bye.